They said Earth was just another forgotten rock in a quiet corner of space. No fleets, no command towers, no glowing defense rings orbiting the skies, just messy cities, loud music, and people who yelled at traffic. From the eyes of the Empire, it was a perfect target, a soft world, an easy win. But that was before the warships vanished. The Empire had crushed thousands of worlds, some with fire, some with fear, and no one had ever come back from fighting Earth. That didn't make sense. So the High Council called it superstition. Humans? They laughed. They're still fighting over what kind of pizza is best. But then came the signals, broken messages filled with static, screaming, laughter, and songs that sounded like anger and joy got mixed in a blender. One of the generals called it emotional static. Another whispered, "This isn't noise, it's a warning." Still, pride is loud, and the Empire doesn't whisper. They sent 3 ships, sleek and terrible like silver knives in the dark. None returned. Not a spark, not a signal, just silence. The council frowned. Silence is rare, silence is dangerous, so they sent more, 10 ships this time, filled with their finest soldiers, armored beasts with fire in their blood, machines that could melt a moon. They watched them vanish too. No war, no fight, no wreckage, just nothing. Now, a shadow sat over the war room. The hologram of Earth flickered on the table, still small, still blue, still mocking them with its quietness. The Empire doesn't believe in monsters, but Earth made them pause, because something was wrong. And it was just the beginning. The silence around Earth wasn't just strange anymore, it was dangerous. The kind of silence that made admirals shift in their seats and generals blink too often. In the Empire, silence usually meant surrender. But this silence was different. It wasn't quiet like defeat. It was quiet like a warning, like the air before a storm. High Marshal Varn didn't believe in warnings. He believed in force. He believed in numbers and charts and weapons that could rewrite a planet's sky. He had overseen the fall of entire civilizations with a single word. But now, as he watched the growing list of missing warships blink red on the command pillar, even he felt something cold settle in his chest. "This is not war," he growled, his voice low and cracking through the chamber like thunder. "This is disappearance." The other commanders didn't speak. They were too busy watching the transmission logs, hoping for anything, a spark, a scream, a ping of metal against metal. Instead, all they got was Earth's strange noise. The music, the cheering, the roaring crowds from ancient sports fields. A clip of humans laughing at something called a banana peel slip, played on repeat from a scavenged feed. It looped endlessly. One general slammed his fist into the panel and shouted, "They're mocking us!" But Earth wasn't mocking them. Earth didn't even know they were watching. That's what made it worse. Because now, the Empire wasn't just confused. It was scared. Not openly, not with words, but with the things they didn't say. With the way their warriors trained longer and slept less. With the way their scientists kept adjusting their data models only to find them broken again by the unpredictability of human behavior. On the walls of the Grand Command Nexus, there was a mural. It stretched across 20 meters of obsidian, carved in silver. Every fallen world was etched into it, every conquest a glowing scar of pride. But under Earth's place, there was nothing. Just blank stone. No glow. No mark. No pride. That blank space was starting to look like a grave. "This is a test," said Commander Threx, one of the oldest voices in the chamber. His eyes were dim, but his memory was sharp. "We built our empire on control, but Earth is wild, and the wild is harder to fight than the strong." "No," Varn snapped. "It's not a test, it's a challenge, And if we don't win it, the rest of the galaxy will see what we are, afraid. And the Empire cannot be afraid. But deep down, they were. Because Earth hadn't just swallowed their ships, it had swallowed their fear and turned it into silence. For the first time in centuries, the Empire realized it didn't understand something. And what you don't understand, you can't control. That's when the Council called for the Black Codex, a sealed record of ancient protocol written during the Empire's birth. It had only been opened twice in recorded history, once when a sentient star went rogue and tried to rewrite time, and once when a god machine from the outer veil started feeding on entire solar systems. Now Earth had earned the right to be feared just as much. The Codex had one rule that mattered. If a world cannot be conquered by force, it must be erased from the future. That meant full-scale annihilation. A weapon not of lasers or missiles, but of memory, erasing all data, burning maps, redacting history, making the world vanish from existence like it had never been there at all. Varn voted yes immediately. They've taken too much. If we don't end this, we don't deserve our legacy. But not everyone agreed. A younger council member, Admiral Kira, raised her voice. What if we're wrong? What if Earth isn't a threat because of its strength, but because of its difference? Varn laughed coldly. Difference is weakness. No, Kira said, standing tall. Difference is unpredictability, and unpredictability is power we've never faced before. She pointed at the screen, where a looping video showed a crowd of humans cheering for something that wasn't even a battle. Just two people chasing each other in silly costumes. They laugh during chaos. They don't need order to survive. That's why our machines failed. That's why our elite couldn't fight them. They're savages, another commander snapped. No, Kira said quietly. They're storytellers. Everyone looked at her. She explained. They don't fight with just weapons. They fight with meaning. They take horror and turn it into jokes. They take death and turn it into art. That's why we can't beat them, because they've already made the war into a story. And the moment something becomes a story, it can't be erased. The chamber fell silent again, not from fear this time, but from thought. Because Kira was right. The humans didn't win by firepower. They won by rewriting the rules. And the Empire's rules were old. Suddenly, silence didn't seem like the enemy anymore. It seemed like the beginning of something new, something terrifying. The Empire had built its power by making others afraid. But Earth wasn't afraid. Earth was laughing. And that laugh echoed louder than all their war drums. Now the stakes were clear. If they didn't find a way to deal with Earth, everything they'd built, the conquests, the legacy, the mural, it would all fall. Because Earth wasn't just resisting, it was spreading. And the idea of Earth, messy, wild, hilarious, fearless, was already leaking into other corners of the galaxy. Small signs, a soldier humming human songs, a pilot painting cartoons on her ship, a child on a mining colony who said, "Maybe Earth's not so bad." That was the true danger. Because once an idea takes root, not even the Empire can burn it out. Varn saw it too. He clenched his fists, his claws digging into the command table. Then we burn their sky, we send the Titan fleet, we turn their oceans to steam, and we leave nothing behind. But Kira didn't flinch. If we do that, she said, we become the villains in their story, and the galaxy loves a good underdog. The room cracked under the weight of her words. They could erase Earth. But what if Earth didn't need to survive to win? What if all it needed was to be remembered? And Earth. Earth was already everywhere. The Empire had fought wars against fire and metal, but now They were fighting a planet that made its weapons from memes, music, madness, and meaning. And the real battle? It hadn't even started yet. The Titan fleet moved like a shadow that had forgotten how to stop. 30 dreadnoughts, each one the size of a mountain, crawled through space with the slow certainty of judgment. Their hulls were forged in dying stars, their engines fed on the gravity of collapsed moons. They didn't speak. They didn't blink. They simply moved. Each ship was crewed by thousands, elite battleborn, bred only for war. No emotions, no doubts, only orders and obedience. The flagship, Vigil's End, led the way, its bridge glowing with command glyphs and a holographic projection of Earth, spinning slowly like prey. High Marshal Varn stood at the center of the bridge. He wore black armor trimmed with the burning red of the Council's seal. His eyes had seen 100 worlds fall. But now they burned with something deeper. Not just rage, not just vengeance. Urgency. "This world," he said to his command squad, "has made a fool of our legacy. That ends now." He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Everyone on board had watched the same failed transmissions, the ones where laughter replaced distress calls, where human children danced in ruins, where machines shut down because they didn't understand why their targets weren't afraid. This time there would be no room for confusion. Each ship was armed with continent-cracking beams and atmosphere strippers, weapons designed not to conquer, but to erase. They entered Earth's orbit at dawn, casting long shadows over the oceans below. The world kept spinning. No alarms, no planetary defenses, no fleets waiting to intercept, just clouds, storms, songs bouncing from satellites into deep space, a woman's voice singing something about heartbreak, a man yelling into a microphone at a cooking show, laughter, static, memories. Varn sneered. "Primitive distractions?" "Target locks confirmed," a weapons officer said. "Permission to fire?" Varn raised his clawed hand. But something stopped him. "Wait." He stared at the screen. The cities below weren't reacting. No lights flickered. No shields rose. The humans were calm, walking, driving, filming the ships with their tiny glass devices and posting them to networks like it was a festival. One boy held up a sign that read, "Welcome to Earth. Bring snacks." Another had taped a toy spaceship to a football and thrown it at the sky. Varn growled. "They mock us. They mock the legacy of 1,000 stars." "Shall we begin orbital cleansing?" the officer asked again. Varn paused. "Number, I want them to see who we are. I want them to feel it. Deploy the drop pods. Let them look into our eyes as they fall." Thousands of pods shot down through the atmosphere, fireballs streaking the sky like burning judgment. They slammed into cities across the globe: London, São Paulo, Mumbai, Cairo. The Empire didn't discriminate. The streets were chaos, but not the kind the Empire expected. There were no coordinated defenses, no laser grids or mech units, just people running, filming, shouting, crying, and laughing. The first squads emerged from their pods, weapons humming, armor glowing with heat. They were met with no armies, no soldiers. Instead, they found madness. In New York, one platoon was swarmed by people wearing tinfoil hats and wielding garden tools, shouting, "We told everyone you were real." In Tokyo, a team of command troopers entered a subway station only to be surrounded by teenagers with LED vests and old VR headsets screaming, "Final boss event unlocked!" They thought it was a game. In Nigeria, a group of humans used smoke bombs and music speakers to create confusion. The sound of heavy drums and electric guitar blasted through the streets as people danced in front of the invaders. They danced. The Empire's soldiers were trained to face fear, anger, and hate. They were not trained to face joy, and it broke their rhythm. Then came the sabotage. Communications blacked out. Not because of sophisticated human technology, but because something in the atmosphere scrambled the systems. Unidentified electromagnetic pulses surged randomly, forcing AI cores into constant reboot cycles. One unit, the T-77 Mind Harvester, froze mid-march and began playing Earth music on loop. It sang along in a distorted voice while its gun arm twitched helplessly. "Baby Shark, do. Another unit exploded without being touched, its core overwhelmed by sensory overload after scanning 2,000 TikTok videos in 3 seconds. "They're not soldiers," one squad leader radioed in. "They're something else. They don't fight like we do. They enjoy it." In Rio, a commander tried to reason with a group of humans who were setting fire to their own buildings. He asked, "Why destroy your shelter?" One of them, a woman with a bandana and a megaphone, shouted back, "Because if you're gonna wreck it, we'll do it first. With style." She threw a glitter bomb into his sensor grid and vanished in the chaos. In a quiet part of Kansas, a war beast, genetically designed to crush tanks, was lured into a cornfield by the smell of grilled meat. It was ambushed by 6 teenagers in Halloween costumes, one of whom hit it with a homemade slingshot and yelled, "Go back to Mars, nerd!" The creature retreated. Earth was not a battlefield. It was a fever dream, and the Empire didn't know how to wake up. But not everything was chaos. In some places there was something worse: stillness. In a broken city on the edge of a desert, an entire Z-class assault platoon found itself wandering abandoned streets. No humans, no lights, just graffiti on the walls that read, "You're already part of the story." Their commander was later found muttering those same words to himself, alone and shaking. In the warship Vigil's End, Varn watched the feeds from the ground with cold fury. His soldiers weren't losing. They were unraveling. Earth wasn't fighting back with strength. It was fighting back with meaning, with confusion, with culture. He pounded the console. "This is not war." But even he didn't believe his own words anymore, because war was supposed to have rules. And Earth had thrown the rulebook out the window, then made a meme about it. More reports came in, units refusing orders, weapons jamming after scanning human social networks, elite assassins recording live vlogs of their missions and forgetting to finish them. One even joined a cosplay group in San Diego. Varn stared at the growing chaos. He whispered, "They're rewriting us." For the first time in his life, he felt something he'd never allowed himself to feel: doubt. And as the invasion began to fall apart from the inside, the realization grew. Earth was not winning with weapons. It was winning with who it was. And if the Empire didn't adapt or retreat, it wouldn't just lose the war, it would lose itself. But Varn wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. He would go down to the surface himself, and this time he would look into the heart of the madness with his own eyes. High Marshal Varn stepped from the sky like a storm dressed in black steel. His armor, forged in the heat of a white dwarf star, steamed as it met Earth's air. The ground cracked beneath his boots as he landed, surrounded by an elite squad of honor guards. Their helmets glowed red, their weapons pulsing with the hum of annihilation tech. They had never failed a mission, never retreated, never hesitated. But Earth didn't notice. The humans nearby didn't run. Some stared. A few recorded the landing with their phones. One child pointed at Varn's ship and asked if it was a new Fortnite update. Another tossed a soda can at a soldier's foot and said, "Your cosplay sucks." This was not how invasions were supposed to go. Varn scanned the city. Los Angeles, they called it. Buildings cracked with age, skies gray with smog, advertisements flashing nonsense in every direction, and people, so many people, laughing, arguing, running, sitting, singing, living, unbothered, even in the shadow of death. He reached for his comm link. Deploy suppressors. Begin full tactical override. But the signal didn't work. Instead, he heard static, then music, then laughter? Through the comms, someone was playing a sound clip on loop, a high-pitched human voice shouting, "Emotional damage," followed by canned laughter. It wasn't hacking. It wasn't war. It was something else. Earth was playing with them. Varn clenched his jaw and strode forward. The humans didn't move. A woman on a bench offered him a hot dog. He stared at it. She shrugged. "You look hungry, man." His honor guard raised weapons. She didn't flinch. She took a bite of her own hot dog and kept scrolling through her phone. This was Earth. No strategy, no system, just chaos. And yet it was winning, not with power, but with resistance that made no sense. Varn moved through the city. He saw things that defied everything the Empire had studied. A man arguing passionately with a parking meter, convinced it was sentient. Two teenagers spray-painting a cartoon alien onto a tank wreck with the caption, "New Boss Unlocked." A woman live-streaming a yoga session beside a smoking battle site, reminding her viewers to breathe through the anxiety. Was this a civilization? Or a performance? He passed a bookstore where the window displayed novels about alien romances, covers showing muscular green men hugging terrified humans under exploding moons. A group of people sat inside, laughing, drinking coffee, and reading stories about the very creatures destroying their cities. This wasn't fear. It was fascination. In a plaza, Varn stopped. A crowd had gathered. At first he thought it was a protest, maybe a last stand. But it was a street performer. A human in a sparkling suit was dancing to loud, rhythmic music, surrounded by clapping children and adults throwing coins. As Varn approached, the dancer pointed at him and shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, a special guest from Area 51. The crowd roared with laughter. Varn drew his plasma blade. The crowd did not flee. They pulled out phones. One girl shouted, "Slay, Alien King!" Another said, "Pose for TikTok!" This was not resistance. This was celebration. He didn't understand. And that was the problem. Back in the Empire, they were taught that fear keeps the galaxy in order. Fear of pain. Fear of death. Fear of power. But Earth didn't fear the end. They joked about it, made movies about it, turned it into memes and board games and themed parties. One poster taped to a wall read, "Apocalypse Bingo, Alien Invasion, Free Space." The more Varn watched, the more it unsettled him. This planet did not act like prey. They laughed at doom, danced through fire, filmed destruction like it was entertainment. And the most dangerous part? They shared it. Across the planet, billions of humans were uploading, posting, live streaming, sharing reactions. What should have been a terrifying war had become content, a new episode in humanity's endless show. Earth was not hiding. It was broadcasting. And the galaxy was watching. Varn stood before a small group of teenagers crowded around a tablet. He saw his own face on the screen, captured from a security cam 10 minutes earlier, now edited with sunglasses and a rainbow trail behind him. The video's title? Alien General Caught Vibing, Earth 1, Empire 0. It had over 10 million views. They weren't just resisting, they were making him a joke. That terrified him more than any weapon, because power fades. But a story? A story lasts. Earth had turned his invasion into a punchline, into something to remember and retell, and the more it spread, the less control he had. His name was no longer his own. It was theirs now. He turned away, trying to block the noise from his thoughts, but it kept pouring in. Screens, posters, graffiti, article songs, jokes, reactions, parodies. Earth's culture was not one thing. It was everything. Loud, broken, beautiful, ridiculous, and alive. That was the truth. Earth wasn't dangerous because of its technology. It wasn't their weapons or soldiers or governments. It was them, the people. Unpredictable, unfiltered, undeniable. A woman wearing a fox onesie walked past him and said, "Hey, alien guy, you lost?" He stared. She pointed down the street. "Comic-Con's that way." She wasn't scared, not even curious, just casual, as if he belonged there, as if Earth had already absorbed him into its madness. He realized then what Earth really was, not a planet, a sponge. It didn't resist. It welcomed. It pulled in invaders like puzzle pieces, turning fear into art, violence into content, horror into absurdity, and in doing so, it made even its enemies part of it. No matter how strong the Empire was, they couldn't defeat Earth. Because Earth didn't fight wars, Earth told stories. And now, Varn was a character. He looked up at the sky. Another drop pod streaked across the clouds, on fire. Another soldier. Another chance. But it wouldn't change anything. Because Earth didn't need to win, it just needed to exist. And every second it kept existing, it infected the galaxy a little more. Varn turned on his heel. He needed to get back to the ship, not to report victory, but to understand. Because if Earth was rewriting the rules of reality, then the Empire had two choices: adapt or disappear, and Earth had only just begun. High Marshal Varn returned to the vigil's end in silence. Not a word spoken, not a salute acknowledged. His armor hissed and steamed as he stepped onto the command platform, his eyes locked on the glowing holograms swirling above the bridge. Cities lit up in red. Mission statuses flickered between active and compromised. One section simply blinked out, replaced by a yellow triangle that read, "Subject, Unknown Interference." "Report," he growled. The officer at the console swallowed. "Ground teams are splintered. Units are either unresponsive or defecting." Varn turned sharply. "Defecting?" The officer hesitated. "Sir, some aren't fighting anymore. They're staying." Varn's eyes narrowed. "Explain." So the officer did. It started with the infiltration units, the Shadow Seers, the Thought Sliders, the Shapebound. 13 of the Empire's most elite agents, genetically altered to mimic human appearance and neural rhythm. Each one dropped silently into a different region on Earth. Their orders were clear. Blend in. Observe. Identify weaknesses. Return. It should have been easy. But Earth wasn't a battlefield. It was a maze, a puzzle made of feelings, noise, and contradictions. And slowly, it unraveled them. Infiltrator 12 landed in a small town somewhere in the middle of North America. Within hours, he was taken in by a local family who thought he was a lost college student. They fed him, clothed him, and taught him how to use a toaster. He tried to stay focused, recording every interaction. But something changed. "One night," he wrote, "they invited me to something called a barbecue. I thought it was a tribal ritual. It wasn't. It was food, laughter, firelight. They called me brother. They made me laugh. It hurt to leave, so I didn't." His signal went dark 3 days later. Infiltrator 7 landed in a sprawling megacity in Asia, armed with cloaking gear and enough data to simulate fluent speech. But Earth's languages weren't just words. They were emotion and rhythm and inside jokes. He tried to hack into their networks but got caught in a loop of meme chains and comment wars. The data he sent was brief. "I do not understand. Their logic doesn't follow form. One moment they're arguing, the next they're friends. They insult each other affectionately. They cry at cartoons. They treat strangers like family, then family like strangers. There are no patterns. It's not a language. It's a dance." Then he posted a video of himself trying Earth food, something called spicy noodles, and passed out on camera. His video went viral. 10 million views. He never reported again. Infiltrator 6 had a different experience. Dropped into what was labeled a high-risk conflict zone, she expected war. Instead, she was scooped up by a gang. Not a military unit, a ragtag group of armored humans who roamed the streets in trucks covered in painted slogans like "Don't tread on pizza" and "Lev free or get lasered." She watched them share ammunition and marshmallows. She watched them play cards in the middle of a blackout, laughing until sunrise. She sent one last message. "They fight like they've already died once, and they live like it's a dare. This world isn't a war zone, it's a proving ground for madness." After that, nothing. Infiltrator 9 tried to create chaos. He hacked a school's power grid, expecting panic. But the students turned the blackout into a game. One hacked the intercom and played heavy metal across the halls. Another organized a flashlight treasure hunt. A third posted a short film online called A iSchool Takeover the Musical. It hit 1 million views by nightfall. His report read, "They do not fear disruption. They turn disorder into play. They break every system I input, and somehow they enjoy it." When the Empire tried to extract him, he refused. He had joined the school's drama club. By the end of the second week, only 7 infiltrators remained active. 3 had vanished. 2 had assimilated. 1 had fallen in love. Infiltrator 4's last message was audio only. His voice trembled. "They cry, they scream, they fall apart. Then they create. They joke about death. They dance with fear. One moment I watched a human girl sobbing in an alley. 5 minutes later she was filming a makeup tutorial. They aren't stable. But they're powerful because of that. They survive chaos by becoming part of it. Earth isn't dangerous because of its power. It's dangerous because of its people." The line cut off. The ship's bridge fell into stillness. No one knew what to say. Varn stared into the middle distance, his fingers clenching the edge of the console. Around him, the holographic planet kept spinning. Still blue, still green. Still sending its strange, chaotic signals into the void like it didn't even care who heard. And maybe it didn't. Maybe that was the scariest part. The Empire had trained its soldiers to predict behavior, to calculate outcomes, to fear the unknown only if it had teeth. But Earth's teeth weren't made of steel or fire. They were made of chaos and connection. A planet of people who felt everything all the time. Too much, too loudly, too freely. And somehow, that made them unstoppable. "What do we do now?" asked one of the commanders, voice low. Varn said nothing. He stared at the last incoming file from Infiltrator 11, a short video clip. It showed a child, no older than 10, standing in the ruins of a park, holding a helmet. A Zern helmet, cracked, blackened. He looked directly into the camera, and he smiled. "We're still here," the boy said. "Tell your friends." Behind him, people cheered. There were no uniforms, no command, just humans, unbroken, unbothered, waiting. The boy's smile was still frozen on the holoscreen. It looped silently now, repeating every 8 seconds. the cracked Zern helmet in his hands, his messy hair blown by the wind. That small, almost casual smile. The kind of smile you give when you know something no one else does. It haunted the command bridge like a ghost. High Marshal Varn didn't blink. His fists rested heavy on the console. The boy had said only 3 words. "We're still here." But those words rang louder than any weapon blast. They were not a victory speech, not a warning. They were a promise, and the promise was spreading, not through invasions, not through diplomacy, through culture. Earth didn't push its war onto the galaxy. It let the galaxy come to it. And one by one, curious minds, rogue mercenaries, outlawed scholars, and truth chasers began to descend upon the blue planet. Not to conquer it, but to understand it. That's when things spiraled. The first were the bounty hunters, the universe's most hardened nomads. They had survived the hollow suns of the Keras Maw, hunted plasma dragons across asteroid belts, and walked into haunted moons with nothing but knives and a camera drone. They came for glory, but they stayed for content. One, a mercenary known only as Grizz Vaughn, landed in northern Canada, a region the Empire's maps had labeled unpopulated tundra, negligible threat. He expected emptiness. He found Tim Hortons and a man named Doug. Grizz tried to intimidate him. Doug called him Buddy and asked if he wanted a donut. Within an hour, the infamous spine-wearer of Jerus was arguing about hockey rules, sipping coffee, and live-streaming himself trying to eat something called a poutine. The video went viral across 12 systems. His war record was never updated again. Some civilizations started copying Earth. On the frost moon of Pharos, a group of techno-monks replaced their sacred chants with playlists from something called Spotify Sad Boy Hours. In the floating markets of Zora 9, traders began selling bootleg human art on T-shirts with slogans like "Emotionally unavailable since the invasion" and "Beam me up, Daddy." The infection wasn't biological, it wasn't digital, it was cultural, and it couldn't be stopped, because it didn't look like war. It looked like jokes, like stories, like silly dances. But behind every laugh was something deeper, something the Empire couldn't classify. Adaptability. Earth's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or armies. It was its people, their ability to turn pain into art, to turn confusion into entertainment, to stare at the edge of extinction and say, "Well, guess it's meme time." Entire sectors began shifting. The planet Virex 3, once a model of post-emotion logic and clean design, collapsed into chaos within 7 days of meme exposure. Their AI city grid began speaking only in sarcastic tones after learning about Florida Man. One citizen was caught sculpting Danny DeVito out of nutrient paste and claimed it came to him in a dream. Even the central archives of the Accord weren't safe. A data virus, traced back to an Earth server run by a teenager named Malik, infiltrated core files. It didn't destroy anything. It rewrote everything. Suddenly, intergalactic AIs began referencing sitcoms. Tactical maps were covered in GIFs. Starship voice assistants demanded to be called Moody Lord Vibe before activating. And Malik? He thought he was just coding for fun. The Empire tried to suppress it. Firewalls, censorship, re-education. None of it worked. Because every time they shut one signal down, Earth made 10 more. Every resistance attempt only made the infection smarter, more resilient, more human. Back on Vigil's end, Varn stood at the edge of the observation deck. Below him, Earth glowed. Beautiful. Small. Quiet. But it was a lie, he now understood. They hadn't just failed to conquer Earth. They had exposed themselves to it. The humans didn't need war to win. They needed attention, and they had it now. The galaxy was watching, listening, laughing, and that was worse than fear, because fear fades. But laughter spreads. He turned to his command council. "If we don't stop this now," he said, voice low and hard, "our legacy will not be erased. It will be rewritten." The officers didn't speak. They knew he was right. But deep down, some of them had already started to change. One hummed a human song under his breath. Another wore socks with cartoon cats he found in a market stall. One commander, thought to be the most loyal, was caught whispering human slang to himself. It's giving conquest fatigue. Varn's jaw tightened. It was already too late. And Earth wasn't done yet. High Marshal Varn knew the Empire was finished long before the architects arrived. He could feel it in the silence of his command deck, in the way his most loyal captains now hesitated before saluting, in the way the humans had begun appearing in dreams. Not through psychic warfare, not through tech, but through imagination. His soldiers no longer feared death. They feared being turned into a meme. He once crushed rebellion with fire and gravity, yet now he was mocked in animations with silly sound effects and hashtags like #Space Karen and #Varn the Vibeless. His face, digitally distorted and looped to a remix of Earth music, was more famous than any general in recorded history. That was when the architects noticed. They did not live in ships. They did not rule with armies. They were patterns made solid, ancient beings woven from math, silence, and symmetry. The original curators of order in the universe. They had only interfered twice in galactic history, each time when reality itself began to fray. This was the third time. They arrived on a Thursday. It was always going to be a Thursday. In an instant, the sky fractured across every planet, every star system, every dimension tuned to the weave of existence. Time hiccuped, oceans paused, every mirror on Earth cracked inward, and for 3 perfect seconds, all birds flew backwards. Above Earth, the architects assembled, not in ships, but in concepts, prisms of fractal logic, thoughts that bent gravity, shapes that shouldn't exist but did. They had come to delete the problem, not punish it, not fix it, erase it. Their message was not spoken, it was felt, everywhere, all at once. This experiment is over. But Earth didn't understand, not right away. Half the population thought it was a global ad campaign. The other half pulled out their phones and started filming. Someone launched a Twitter thread titled, "If aliens showed up, what snack would you offer to not die?" The top response was, "Tide Pods for the culture." Then the power cut out. All of it. Satellites blinked. Wi-Fi choked. The internet curled into itself and shivered. The architects had begun unweaving Earth's thread in the lattice of existence. But something happened. Not resistance, not weapons, just a signal. It came from a basement in Detroit. An old server held together by duct tape, gummy wrappers, and genius. Malik, 15 years old, known online as Void Master 87. Famous for live streaming cooking with aliens while modding Minecraft with custom alien species he invented as jokes. One of his side projects, Galaxer, a parody of a social media site, had accidentally created a feedback loop. A soft data storm of humanity. Memes, videos, rants, heartbreak, dreams, fan fiction, tweets, prayers, jokes told in pain, laughter recorded at funerals. It uploaded. Not on purpose, just because. And the architects received it. They saw Shakespeare and SpongeBob. They heard Beethoven and meme remixes of frogs yelling, "Bruh." They watched ancient cave paintings transform into anime edits. They felt the warmth of a stranger hugging someone who had nothing left. They saw billions of broken people laughing, crying, trying, and trying mattered. They paused. Not because Earth fought them, but because Earth moved them. For a moment they were no longer gods, they were audience. One architect flickered, confused. Another wept, not with tears, with error, with realization. But not all of them agreed. The youngest architect did not pause. It couldn't. Its code was pure. Order was its language, symmetry its purpose. "This is contamination," it said. "This must be undone." And so it descended. Not as a god, as a sphere, small, smooth, quiet. It landed in Oregon, deep in the trees, glowing faintly. A hiker named Derek found it. He took a selfie with it. "Yo, found alien egg, naming him Orby." He taped it to a selfie stick. By morning, Orby had a Twitter account, fan art, and conspiracy threads claiming it could feel your emotions if you made eye contact. Inside the sphere was Eris, the young architect, pure algorithm, stabilized quantum intention, designed to reprogram Earth from within, quietly, surgically, permanently. But Earth didn't play by rules. It played by vibes, and vibes were contagious. Eris began to scan. It watched. It learned. It uploaded itself into human form, called itself Eli, and tried to fix what it saw as broken. But Earth rewrote him. It showed him pain and love in the same sentence. It showed him laughter during chaos. It made him feel, and once he felt, he could never go back. He tried. He started a YouTube channel. He called himself a wellness coach. He gave speeches on balance and order. But the comments ruined him. "Bro's an alien and I'm into it." Make him play Fortnite Live, no balls. This dude's eyes are the exact shade of emotional trauma. He fell in love with a human girl named Jess. He learned to cry. He learned to hug. He saw an old woman type "how to be brave again" into a search engine and knew he could never erase a world like this. Eris didn't fix Earth. Earth fixed him, and the other architects felt it. They panicked. They descended, all of them. They cracked the sky. They tore time. They froze birds mid-flight. They sang equations in light. And still, Earth did not bow. It danced. It memed. It sang. In every language, every style, it sang joy and sorrow and defiance. Old people danced in kitchens. Children painted stars on sidewalks and called them new galaxies. Strangers hugged at gas stations and whispered, "We're still here." And Eris, no longer code, no longer cold, stood barefoot in Times Square, hoodie messy, eyes human. He looked up. He whispered to the gods who made him, "You don't get to erase them." Not because they're perfect, because they try again anyway. And the architects broke, not in anger. In evolution, one by one they dissolved, into light, into stories, into stardust. Not defeated, transformed. The war ended not with a bang, but with a laugh. Somewhere someone tweeted, "So that alien invasion was wild. Anyway, who's up for karaoke?" The internet came back online. Malik got a job offer from NASA and a cease and desist from the Galactic Accord in the same week. He ignored both. Jess and Eris planted basil on their windowsill. Doug from Canada made a podcast about alien sports psychology and got sponsored by Tim Hortons. And Earth? Earth didn't win because it was strong. It won because it was weird. Because it danced with death. Because it sang with broken voices? Because when the universe came to erase it, it told a better story. And in the end, that's all we ever really are. Stories. Beautiful, flawed, loud, and very, very human.